And welcome back to Open Your Eyes. We're moving now into our first segment for the morning, and this conversation is about domestic violence. We'll be talking to a domestic violence survivor, and she'll be recounting her story in an effort to raise awareness to the 16 days of activism. Now, in with us on Zoom, actually, all the way from her village, is Sharima Graham. She is a domestic violence survivor. Sharima, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
I tell you what, it's a blessing to have you. I've got to say, you look great this morning. You look
Thank
wonderful.
you. Thank you.
Sure, this is definitely a very sensitive topic for me. It is a sensitive topic for a lot of people as well. Let's start out by firstly telling us how you're doing. Then from there, we'll move on into the story. How are you today?
Um, I will say I'm blessed. It's one of the better days.
Yeah,
There's no pain today. I'm feeling well and calm. So
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, Sharima, let me just ask the question. It's been 6 years since the final incident, the
single
attempted murder.
incident.
Yeah. Um, what's that? Sorry.
I said the single incident.
Yeah.
Oftentimes when we hear about domestic cases, especially one of the graveness of mind where
Mm.
someone almost loses their life, we tend to assume that there were incidents leading up to it before there were signs. And in my case, there was none. It
Wow.
was the one case and it was severe.
Yes, it was. And so that's kind of what I wanted to ask about. People go through these traumatic incidents, and not everyone feels comfortable sharing. What makes you want to let your story be heard? What's the intention behind it?
Um, for me, we've been seeing a spike over the years of persons being abused. And I think that enough is not being done
Yeah.
to help persons who are being abused. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that oftentimes when you see incidents of domestic violence, you notice that the person goes back and it's a repeated thing. And so society seems to take on a backdrop. Domestic violence is not seen as something important because nobody speaks out, nobody lets the others become aware of how um, difficult it is to survive, how difficult it is to navigate through and hold yourself together after being abused, whether physically, psychologically, whatever.
Yeah.
Sure. So let's recount what happened. Primarily, I'd like to start by asking, did you see any signs? Because one of the things that we do, especially when we talk with the women's department, we would ask about signs of somebody being an abusive person. Let's start there. Did you see any signs of this?
I will tell you, we started dating and in a relationship in 2009. He was the sweetest person. You would send a text, I need XYZ. He'd be calling, checking in. He was never a person that shows any sign of aggression. As a matter of fact, several times while we're having conversations, he would mention his brother being arrested for assaulting his girlfriend or whatever, and he would be the person who would express his rage and saying, "I don't know how he could ever do that. How you could ever knock a woman." So he was always a person talking against men who would hit women.
Yeah.
So it was not like you would say, okay, me push me or me cuss me out or something. Okay, it's time for me to step back. There was no signs. The first, I would say, the first sign prior would be January 7th of that year. I went home and I found him in my house with another woman. And in the midst of that, I guess it angered him to know that I caught him red-handed. He choked me that day, attacked me. And in self-defense, I grabbed the knife and I stabbed him. I had always told him that no one was going to lay their hands on me and I will accept that. And so I defended myself that day. And I told him and I told his family member, I said, at the point when it get that I feel I have to defend myself, this is where I draw the line. I'm ending it. It's done. Give me my keys. You need to leave. So January 7th, we ended it. Um,
And it was
but we
over.
were being, it was
It
over.
was
We,
over. Yeah.
yes, we were not in a relationship anymore. We share a son. He was raising my daughter. And in trying to co-parent, you live civil. I've never spoken bad about him to the children. They didn't even know that he wasn't living there. He was a bus driver. He left at 5 in the morning. He came back after 9. When he leaves, the children are sleeping, and my children had strict bedtime. So when he came back after 9 minutes to 10, they are sleeping as well. The only time they would get to see him was if he was off on a Sunday. And my son had atopic dermatitis. So I try to keep everything as normal as can be. The lady who collected him from preschool would put him on the bus with his dad in the evening as usual. I get him off. So it was life as usual for the children. They would not know that he was not living there, that we were no longer together.
Yeah. So you caught him cheating. This is the first time he's violent to you in the relationship. You respond by stabbing him, I think, in the leg, right? And that's the end of the relationship.
That's the end.
But it wasn't the end of your ordeal. In fact, he came back after you a few months later. And this is, of course, the major incident that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Sharima, I don't know how much you want to recount, because it is, I mean, it's very gruesome. I know we have some photos as well that you've shared with us. But just take us back to that moment when you realized that this person that you've ended the relationship with, that you share a child with, is almost about to kill you.
Well, I could recall, the week before I was ill, and like I said, we were living civilly. Since I was away from family members, I told him, I said, I'm starting medication. I'm not feeling well. I need you to come and stay with us. So in case something happens to me, I have a reaction. There's someone here to take care of the kids. I don't want the kids to be the one to find me if anything happens. After 3 days, there's nothing happening. I said, you know what? You don't need to come back. I thank you very much. I've been taking the medication for 72 hours. Nothing has happened. Nothing will happen. Thank you. The Friday of the payday, which was the day the incident happened, we went through our normal things, him getting the children, my daughter going with him. I get them after work, take them to the park and all that. I got home. I put them to bed. He comes at the door saying he has something for CJ, my son, because my son is junior. I opened the door, and when I opened the door, he began to complain. I know you were at the park with a man, and going off. I told him, I said, if I know you were going to be making a fuss, I wouldn't open my door. I opened the door because you said you brought something for my child. You need to leave my house. If you don't leave, I'm going to call the police. You know, call police for me? You think you are call? I said, yes, if you don't leave my house, I need you to leave my house. So I went into my room to get my phone. And when I turned around with the phone in hand, something hit me across my face. I cannot tell you what he hit me with. I cannot tell you how many times I got hit. I cannot give you any more details because I lost consciousness. When I came back, I was 2 weeks in the hospital, couldn't turn my neck, stitches in my eyes, teeth missing, nose broken in 2 places, chipped tooth. It was very bad.
Where were the children?
The children were in the house at the time of the incident. And what was heartbreaking for my family about all this was that my brother receives a call from my phone. And they know that the only time I call after 9 is if something happens to my children, if I need a ride to the hospital, it's an emergency. I don't call late night. I'm an early bed person. And so when he saw that he missed a call from me, well, his girlfriend woke him up and said, Chev, Rima, they call something wrong. So he called back, and when he called back, it was Mr. Roches who answered the phone, saying that he got the children from the park. I left them at the park alone with the phone, and I went off with a man, and he cannot find me. This time I was on my bed, bleeding out. And my brother sent his workman out searching for me and my car, because as far as they know, I am missing. I ran off with a man and neglected my children. While this sent up red flags for them, he called my parents and said, "Ma, something not correct. This is what Conroy is saying, that Rima run off and left the picnic, but Rima don't normally go without the picnic." You know, so my parents call him on the magic jack, because I have to talk to my daddy 3 times a day. So I had magic jack. And he's there telling them the same story. "I don't know what happened to Sharima. He ran off with a man, he left the picnic. You need to make somebody come for the picnic." So they're there constantly for hours. So this accident incident happened like 9:30, 10 o'clock. And it was not until after 1 that he called and said, "I need an ambulance. Me and my girl get in our fight and I need an ambulance." At that time, he called my brother and he said, "Rima, just come home, but you don't want to talk to nobody." And they're like, "Tell her dad wants to talk to her," because my family know, no matter what, we could be in an argument and I will answer the phone. I will say hello and I will listen. I will let them say all that they want to say and I will hold the phone. So that was another red flag for them to hear that I don't want to talk to anybody. By that time, my dad was calling the police station, his friends that are police, and saying, "You need to go and check 134. Well, the call came in, and then he called my brother and he said, "Me and sister get in our fight and I found body going down in our ambulance." So my brother turned around and head to the hospital. And he said when the ambulance arrived, it was my cousin, and he had to look and said, "Cause he said, am my sister in here?" And my cousin said, "Yes, that's your sister." And when they opened the door and he looked at me, he said, "That isn't my sister. You sure that's my sister?" "Yes, Sherry McGuire, 134 Lord's Bank." And that's when he realized, yes, this is my sister. He said my face was so swollen up, blood everywhere, that he couldn't recognize me. I'm his only sister, and we spend a lot of time together. And if he couldn't recognize me, then
wow. Yeah, I'm, it seems that you have had a lot of time in past that you can comfortably speak about it, but hearing it, Sharima, that's tough. I can't imagine what you went through, what your kids went through, what your family went through. And here you are sharing this story publicly to everyone across the country, because your case was actually even more interesting because you pursued charges. There was a
well, it was not up to me.
Yes, go ahead.
It was him against the state. I was only a witness. I did not withdraw and go in and say I don't want to press charges. I just decided let justice prevail. Let them take it to court. At half, it was depressing though, having to deal with your health issues and taking on the police department because the police did not do their job.
Why do you say this?
I want to touch on that because that's why I think it's so important. A lot of women, after an incident, a violent incident in the home, some will make the report. Many will withdraw, and many will not even go to a police station or want to do anything about it. And the system itself, many say it doesn't have the level of sensitivity required for what you have been through and what that has done to you. So I want to use that as an example. You're saying that you felt it was frustrating. One, how long did it take you to recover from the injuries?
Well, physically, you would say the physical outside, a couple months. By July, when I came back, there was not much scarring on my face. I was able to see my children then. In May, when I flew out, my family decided that I wasn't in a condition to see my children. I had the bulging scars, bloodshot eyes, ligature marks on my neck. They didn't want my children to see me like that. And by July, well, it was a little bit better. my facial structure changed. I looked different. And so as a way of prepping them for when they saw me, my family spent some time telling them, mommy look different. I look the same way. So they had to be coaxed. I myself had to learn to accept this new phase. It took a while. In fact, up to this day, I don't like taking pictures and so forth without my dark shades, because I think it shows the change in my face, the defect in my nose. And so I'm very, very self-conscious about the camera and so forth. But psychologically, it's been 6 years, and I will tell you that the healing is still not done. I am still dealing with anxiety. I'm still dealing with vertigo. I'm still dealing with a lot of the side effects. And on top of that, I am trying to help my daughter cope with her anxiety and her depression. And being at 7 when the incident happened, it took her until she was 10 before she admitted that she saw him in the house. She saw him hit me with a hammer. All this while we thought that, well, they were sleeping, they did not see.
Yeah.
And sad to say, nobody offered counseling for my child. And in the onset of it, my family, they were more, interested in trying to see if I would be able to function on my own, if I would be able to see if I was going to be able to do what I used to do. And so they were not really focusing on the children, or even considering that, maybe put the children into counseling. And now at 14, I have a daughter that I have to be monitoring regularly because she's into self-harm. She has attempted suicide. It's very, very, very hard to have to deal with your own mental health along with trying to hold together someone else.
Yeah. And how about your son? How is he?
My son at 4, I think he vented, and he's coping better now.
Yeah.
At 4, he was, questioning, teacher, if your daddy that be my daddy and he try kill my ma, how you may feel, what you may do? And he was breaking things. He was rather aggressive. And I went to human service. I went to different organizations telling them about my assault and what I'm seeing through my son. And it hurt me that I was told, Miss, is school not referring because you don't do nobody nothing, so we can't offer counseling. I had to be going from office to office many times until finally I got them in for probably 6 months at community rehabilitation department. But after that, I have to be financing this counseling. And it's not easy doing $60 a session or $130 a session twice a month.
Yeah.
So Sharima, I would like your speak the truth here in terms of talking to these various departments, because situations like yours, with men hitting on women and just trying to destroy them physically, mentally, it happens every day. And every day these women might approach these departments. What would you want to see change from these? We're not bashing the departments here. What we're doing here is actually trying to correct the measures of how people like yourself sees it and the help that you really need. What would you want to see change from these departments, the police departments or the various departments that you visited?
One of the things I think that they need, social services offer counseling services to children. However, they wait until they get a referral from the school to say this child is acting out, this child is aggressive. In the case of my daughter, she would never receive the help because she's not the aggressive kind. She just absorbs it. So when we hear those situations, we get reports of abuse in a home. We don't wait for the children to act out. We need to reach out to that family. We need to reach out to those children. Don't wait until they run off the track for us to try and bring them back on the track. We need to help them cope, teach them coping skills, help the family. I am blessed to have had a family that was there supporting me there are a lot of people out there that don't have that. So while I am able to hold together and I'm able to piece back my life together and move forward, a lot of persons can't because they don't have that support. We need to create offices, places where women are supported, where they feel comfortable enough, where they feel someone have my back. We cannot do it alone. And I'm not going to tell anybody I did it alone. I did it with my family. I had help.
Yeah.
I had some good friends in my corner. There are some people who don't have that.
Sherima, just to be able to ensure that everyone knows the full scope of the story, the perpetrator did plead guilty to, I believe it's grievous harm. The original charge was attempted murder because he attempted to hang you. Yeah.
Yes.
What was that like?
He hugged me.
Yeah, yeah.
God was not ready for me yet.
Yeah.
I guess my story was needed. Initially, when I heard that the charges got lowered to grievous harm, it was devastating. I felt like just giving up. I felt hopeless. I felt like the system failed me. It took me a while before I accepted it. After the prosecutor explained, he said, if we push for attempted murder, he stands a higher chance of walking. Attempted murder is only 12 years in prison if found guilty, but it's harder to prove. Grievous harm is easier to prove. It will be 7 years max. So it took me a while before I could accept it and really not let that impact how I feel about myself. Because first it was a blow. I said, imagine this is what you consider my life to worth. How could you look at this, the damage to my face, seeing the news, all that, and not think it's attempted murder? But while we could think and we could assume in the court of law, we need facts. And that's where the police system failed me. It took 6 months of going back and forth to Ladyville Police Station before they removed that news from my house and accepted it into evidence. They were not doing their job. When that case went up for bail hearing, not a picture of me was in that folder. It took years for my brother to go around and figure out how to get those pictures admitted because the police told them it was not taken with the police camera, so we cannot accept that as evidence. When we got to find out through other legal person that that was not the case. You know, we need to have a police department that is doing their job to protect the victims, to help the victims, because I feel as if though I had to fight the police department to build a case. And without support, without having my family with me and my brother who is self-employed, who could take off a day here and there and go with me for support, I would not have had the strength to fight and piece that case together to get that grievous harm I'm charged to stand. And a lot of people don't have that support system.
Wow.
And you know, you spoke of the psychological pain that you still experience, but you also still have lingering physical pain.
Yes.
And you've been diagnosed with PTSD.
PTSD, generalized anxiety disorder, tinnitus. It's a lot.
Sure,
I know. I don't want to press on your pain.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is just an extraordinary example of one, your strength to be able to share this so openly with all who are listening, so that they can understand how these things can happen. You said very clearly in the beginning you had never had a violent incident with your ex-partner before this particular, well, the two incidents. The first time he attempted to choke you, when you broke up with him, and then the time he came back. How do you use this as an example for other women who perhaps are in relationships where there are signs of violence? How do you take your story and hope that it can help to save another life?
Well, I think that is why I took up the challenge of talking out on these platforms so that they can know. And at the same time, like I say, we don't know the reason they stay. Some of them, while I was, employed, I was able to fend for myself, I had support. There are some people who the person abusing them are their sole providers, and they might reach out to others. I remember there was a case in PG, I think, where they said the lady was trying to sell her pants to get out of an abusive relationship.
get the
She
bus
couldn't
ticket.
sell her pants, and that night she died. Yes, imagine dying for $20 or $30 and escape. Rather than living in fear, I think that we need to have places put in place where if I feel that I fear for my life, if I'm being threatened, if I'm being abused, I can walk in there and say, you know what? I need out. I need safety. I know Belize is small, and a lot of times I spoke to several of my friends, and they said, you know what? You speaking out and you posting on Facebook, I could now feel comfortable to tell you that I was once in an abusive relationship, but my partner was a police, and the police, they didn't do their job. So a lot of times the people who are there to protect us are not doing their jobs. They're not protecting us. They are protecting the criminals.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part. And that's why women stay, because they cannot survive on their own. If I leave and I don't have a job, who will feed me? Who will feed my children?
Yeah.
Maybe me, I'm a man of three, or my mom dead, or I never even know my mom. Me grow up in a foster care.
Yeah.
So with all those different things in society, as a nation, we need to do better. We need to have places where these people can go and say, I need out, get me out. And you can go. People don't need to die for $30 or for a meal, because that's my next meal ticket. And that's the sad part. While I was not in that situation, I am able to see it. I am able to understand it. That maybe, yes, we sit here and we say, they hit you, they curse you, get out. But it's easier said than done when you don't have that support system. And that is why I decide to emphasize not on getting out, but on us as a community, as a country, creating a place where they can be safe, where they can safely get out, where they can lean on us. We need to be our brother's keeper.
Yeah.
We cannot tell them get out and we're not doing anything to help them. If it's even a space on the floor, spread a sheet and have them sleep there.
Yeah.
Don't say, you know what, oh, big way back tomorrow. Maybe this time when the person has to leave, maybe they really want to leave. Maybe they finally garnered that strength. So even if it's 10 times, it happened before when you're taking in and they come back, don't close your door. They need that support. They need to know that there's someone there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, I think that's the perfect way to round off this
Yeah,
conversation. But just with one more thing to be able to say. At one point, your family was unsure whether or not you'd be able to work again because of the injuries you'd sustained. But you went ahead,
back to work.
you got your bachelor's degree, and now you're doing your certificate in leadership, and you are a teacher.
I actually completed last year.
You completed
Congratulations.
last year.
Congratulations.
And you are teaching. You're in the classroom there at Moscow.
Yes.
What's the feeling like? How are you? How are you feeling?
I think getting the opportunity to be back at work is rewarding. It saves me actually. In the beginning, when I was at home and my family and I, we discussed it, and I said, you know what, I'll take a year off. I'll stay home. Sitting at home was not for me. It leaves you a lot of time to think, and you spend a lot of time thinking, I can't sweep, I can't hang up clothes, I can't do this, I can't do that. In the rain, I feel pain, I swell up at this. And it builds that anger, and it feeds into that self, that feeling of being hopeless. And it drives you to think of all kind of thing that you could do to get back. And so for me, I called my mom and I said, Mom, I need to get something to occupy my mind. And so for me, being in the classroom, it saves me, because then I don't have time to think about what all I can't do. I could focus on what I can do. And so it helps me. It's like my therapy.
Yeah. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being so candid about where our system falls short. And thank you for turning the conversation back around, not on the person who is the victim or the perpetrator, but on us as the wider society, how we have to step up to support.
You know, just before you go, Cher, Marlene, and I always say this, Marlene, you know how I feel about situations like this, but I'd like for you to speak to two parties here. Firstly, I'd like for you to speak to us men who look at women and see them as an object that they could just hit on. What do you say to men to try and turn this around?
I think that men need to remember that they have a mother. You have mother, you probably have sisters. Put yourself in their shoe. Would you want them to be hit? However, when you look at it like that, it goes back to one of the ills of our society. A lot of our men came from situations where they didn't have that male role model showing them how to behave, or they didn't live with their mother, so they don't have that connection. They feel empty. They might be holding on to something from their childhood. And this is why it goes back to say that mental health care plays a role. You feel frustrated, talk it out. Talk to somebody. Don't turn to that liquor. Don't take it out with your fist. Talk it over. It helps to talk.
And finally, and I know time is dwindling, but finally, to women who would like to come out, to break out, what do you say to these women?
I know it's going to be hard, but you need to find yourself a support team. And I don't think that I could talk to the victim and tell them, find a support team. I need to talk to the wider community and tell them, be your brother's keeper, be someone's support, be a listening ear. Don't have a safe place to go to if they don't have a support team. Like I emphasized, I couldn't do it alone. I needed my support. Thanks for my supporters. Thanks for those who were with me when the days when I wanted to give up, when I felt like it was hopeless. I had my support. So we need, as a society, before we can tell them walk out, we need to have places, we need to have people who are willing to be their support team, who are willing to be there with them. Love yourself enough not to stay. You know, it might be hard at first. I'm telling you, it's hard piecing back your life together, but hold on, there's hope. You can piece your life together, but if there's no life, then your children left without a mother, your family left without a family member that they love, we're left with a void. So walk out. Don't worry about the material things. You can get them back. Walk out with your life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharima. You are our strength for today, and we'll carry that with us definitely today and throughout. All right, Sharima Graham, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Wow. All right, we're about to take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by representatives of SMART. Well, Christmas Day, yeah. And you've got to treat yourself, and SMART have got treats. We'll tell you about them when we come back. Stay with us.